Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel. In this video, we're going to be doing a versus comparison between the KD13 and the KD14, right? So the price of both of these shoes is exactly the same, coming in at 150 bucks. So if you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description box. But the KD13, of course, is old or older. It's like a year old or something like that. So you can probably find it for sale. I feel like I saw some KD13s on Nike.com for like 100 bucks or something like that. So again, links are below, but let's get it started off with the Tracciones. And as you guys all know, the KD13 was top tier, really freaking good traction pattern. I use it on the outdoor court, pretty good durability, not the best, but the occasional outdoor use should be fine. If you're playing on a dusty court, you'll be fine. I mean, it has an insane bite through dust somehow. So I mean, I barely wipe, and it was really good on dust as well. And then on a clean court, it has a really fast, very hard stop, so you should be fine if you're playing on a clean court. I mean, most basketball shoes are really good on a clean court. It depends on like how hard it stops. You know, some shoes don't stop as hard, but usually on a clean surface, most basketball shoe outsoles perform pretty damn well. So anyways, the KD13, top tier, as you guys all know, really good traction pattern. So how does the KD14 fare against the KD13, which was like on a lot of top tier lists as far as the traction goes? KD14 is right up there, right? So the traction on an outdoor court is really good. You know, I played on the outdoor court a couple of times, not super heavily either, because the indoor gyms were opening up as I was playing outside as well. So I would say the durability is not the best, but I would say it's probably around the same as the KD13. I feel like the KD13 might be a little bit better, just a tiny bit for durability. As far as the bite goes on the dirty court, dusty setting, it's really good as well. I was playing on the 24-hour fitness court, and it was, you know, as you guys all know, it's super dirty there. It's not even open for basketball. It's just open for, like, I don't know what they're doing, like workouts or whatever. But, you know, I was trying it out there. It has a really good bite on a dusty setting. It didn't really seem to pick up that much dust either. As you guys can see, the grooves are pretty well spaced apart, so it doesn't really trap dust or anything. It just had an overall really good bite, and I never really found myself wiping either. But of course, take that with a grain of salt. I didn't really fully test both of these shoes on a dusty setting, right? So the 24-hour fitness court really wasn't open while I had both of these shoes and was testing them, so take that with a grain of salt. But of course, I did try it out there multiple times, and it seemed to have a really good bite on a dusty court. On a clean court, on the other hand, the KD14 also has an incredible bite. I would say the KD13 seems to stop a little bit better, just a tiny bit better than the KD14, but the KD14 is still really nice. You're gonna get really nice stops, very clean, very crisp stops. So as far as the traction performance goes, I pretty much tie it up. The KD13 is just a tiny bit better. I mean, the KD13 I would say is even like goated. You know, it's one of the best traction patterns that I've played in a while. So there's the KD13, but the KD14 still holds its own, and it really has no issues. Like I said, the KD13 is just a tiny bit better. All right, moving on to the heel to toe transition. Of course, this is pretty important to me. You know, I don't like to feel like a clunky shoe when I'm running down the court, you know? So the KD13 by no means was it clunky, but here in the heel, it is a little clunky. As you guys can see, it's super caged here in the heel, with a lot of the rubber coming up to cage the midsole here in the back of the heel as well. So when you're running down, it's a little clunky, but it does help to have this curved shape here in the heel. So it's not terrible, but it just feels a little clunky here in the heel. And then here in the forefoot, we have a nice curved shape as well as a good amount of forefoot flex. But the KD14, on the other hand, is a fully exposed midsole, and it's a Cushlon midsole, which is super soft. So you get a good amount of compression here in the heel, and it feels very nice. It doesn't feel clunky at all. You have a nice curved shape, and then here in the forefoot, you have a nice curved shape as well, and a good amount of forefoot flex. So the KD14 definitely feels smoother and more fluid when you're running on the court. Of course, there's people that don't really care about that. So if you don't care about that, not a huge deal. You know, they're both good. But if you want like a more smooth ride, then the KD14 is definitely smoother. All right, moving on to the cushioning setup. So both of these cushioning setups are pretty similar, but also a little different, right? So the similarities are that both of these shoes are using full-length Zoom Strobel units, and they both feel very nice, very bouncy right underneath your foot. You get a nice responsive and bouncy sensation when you're walking around, when you're running around, when you're playing and all that. It feels really nice, right? But as I mentioned before, the foam is different. So the KD13, I feel like this is just like Phylon or something. It's just super stiff, and like I mentioned before, the outsole does come up to cage the midsole a good amount, so there's absolutely no compression, especially here in the heel. The KD14 on the other hand is fully, completely exposed, I guess, besides here in the midfoot, here on the lateral and medial side from the strap, but that's not a huge deal. Here in the heel as well as in the forefoot, it's completely exposed, and it allows the cushion and the midsole to compress a good amount, so it feels really soft. I really like how it feels. Of course, it does bottom out a little bit, and it does bottom out pretty quickly because it is Cushlon, but it's just a better feeling overall than this like rubber cage that they did here in the heel for the KD13. So impact protection, it is better here in the KD14, even though the KD13 was still super nice with the zoom strobel. Also, for some reason, the KD14 feels just a tiny bit lower to the ground than the KD13. I don't know why, right? So I had obviously the KD14 on one foot and the KD13 on the other foot, and the cushion felt just a tiny bit lower to the ground. And also, I mean, if you don't want like a soft cushion, I definitely don't think, like in my opinion, I don't think it feels like too slow or anything, but you know, I feel like, you know, if you don't like to have a good amount of compression from your foam and you feel like it'll slow you down a little bit, then definitely go with the KD13. All right, moving on to the materials, the KD14 just has better quality materials. The KD13, like, it's just not that nice, you know. It's just, for a $150 shoe, the material quality is terrible, but it's super thin. It conforms to your foot very, very well. It's soft and all that, so it's not a huge deal on foot. Same thing with the KD14. The KD14 material isn't the best. I mean, it's like this screen mesh with some like synthetic suede overlays or something. It just doesn't feel that quality, but it feels a little bit better than the KD13. But when you put on both of the shoes, they both feel super soft, very, very minimal feeling, and it conforms to your foot very, very well. So I would pretty much tie it up for performance, but the KD14 has slightly better quality. As for the tongue on both of the shoes, they both have an average amount of padding, and here in the ankle area, I would say they both have an average amount of padding, very, very similar as far as the foam padding goes, and it feels nice, you know. It adds for the comfort here in the ankle area and here for the tongue, and it makes the shoe overall a little bit more cozy here in the back of the shoe. And then here in the forefoot, you just get a really nice minimal feeling that feels nice, right? So pretty much for performance, like on foot, I would tie it up, but if you want like the slightly better quality materials, I would go with the KD14. All right, moving on to the fit, very, very similar. I would say pretty much the same, right? So the KD13, I went true to size and it was good for me. And then the KD14, same thing, true to size and it was perfect for me. Both of these shoes fit me extremely well. And KDs usually fit me really well, right? I like a really snug fit, and I also have a slightly narrow foot. So here in the toe box, the KD13 is extremely snug, right? I can't even like curl my toes up in it. Same thing with the KD14. I would say it's a little bit more relaxed than the KD13, but still really, really snug. And then here for the width, I would say they're both pretty damn narrow. So if you want like a roomier fit, or you have like a wide foot or a thick foot, probably go up like a full size. But you know, if you know what size you are here in the KD13, pretty much go the exact same size here in the KD14. All right, moving on to the support and lockdown, no issues for me in either of the shoes, right? So for lateral containment, my foot was not moving out of the footbed at all here in the KD13. We do have some lateral counters for lateral containment, and same goes for the KD14. I had no issues with my foot coming out of the footbed for lateral support. So for lateral containment, I would tie it up. And then as far as the lateral stability goes, they're both around the same width. As you guys can see, it's pretty much the same. So I had no issues with lateral instability. You know, I felt good there. And then as far as ankle supports go, the KD13 and 14, they're both like kind of mid-cut shoes, but then they basically feel like a low because they don't really restrict ankle movement that much. I mean, if you tighten the last couple of eyelets pretty tight, it restricts your ankle movement just a tiny bit, but not like a lot, right? So it still feels like a low. I don't know why they keep doing like a mid-cut, but you know, whatever. I mean, ankle support, I would pretty much tie it up. They're both not the best. All right, moving on to the weight of the shoe. So the KD13 is 12.5 ounces, and then the KD14 is around probably the same, 12.5 ounces, pretty much on the dot. That's crazy. What? So they're pretty much the exact same weight. That's interesting, right? I would have expected the KD13 to be a little bit heavier, right? Because of all of this rubber and also like the midsole coming up a lot to cage. Maybe the strap here on the KD14 adds a little bit of weight as well. I don't know what it is. Interesting. One thing I forgot to mention is the strap. You know, the mid-fit strap here in the KD14 it's okay. You know, I don't like it all too much. The functionality of the strap is not the best. I mean, it improves the lockdown here in the midfoot just a little bit, but it's not really needed. It's more, I feel like it's more for like aesthetic purposes. But anyways, yeah, so both of these shoes feel super light and very, very minimal because of the materials, right? The materials, like I mentioned, is super thin. And then you feel extremely quick in the shoe as well. Traction is top tier, so you're not gonna be sliding around. It's a very responsive shoe. The cushion with the Zoom Strobel, you feel bouncy. I would say the KD14, you feel just a tiny bit slower. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying like you feel extremely slow or anything like that, but you just feel a little bit slower in the KD14 than in the KD13 because of the softer Cushlon. So I mean, if you don't like that feeling, then if you want ultra responsiveness, the KD13 is just a tiny bit better. But I would say it's a trade-off, you know, like if you want like a soft, more comfortable feeling, and that's definitely a worth it trade-off for me, then I would choose a KD14. But either way, both of these shoes, you feel extremely quick and very responsive while you're playing in it. All right, moving on to the ventilation. Ventilation, I would say, is pretty much the same. You know, there's not a whole lot of like airflow. Like the KD14 has just a tiny bit, and so does the KD13. Just a tiny bit of airflow, but the materials, like I keep mentioning, is super thin, so it doesn't retain heat that much. My feet weren't super hot, and they also weren't super cool. I would say it's around like pretty good ventilation, right? So I would tie it up for ventilation there. As far as the aesthetics go, KD13. KD13 looks better. I like the bigger swoosh. The KD14, I don't know. I just not a huge fan of the looks, especially the medial side. Look at this. Look at that. Like, that looks weird, you know? Tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, the KD13 was a banger, and it was in my rotation, top 3 performers of the entire year of last year, right? For the KD13, it was consistently in top tier lists throughout the entire year as well. And how does a KD14 fare against a KD13? It's an improvement, I would say, right? So the traction is just as good. You know, the KD13 is a little bit better, but it's still really, really good. It's top tier traction. Cushion is better with the exposed Cushlon. Materials, it feels very similar, you know, very minimal and all that, but it's better quality. Support and all that is still there. So yeah, the KD14 is definitely an improvement. So if you've tried the KD13 or you have the KD13 and you want a little bit of an improvement, go with the KD14. But you still can't go wrong with the KD13. Just keep in mind, it's a little clunky here in the heel. That's about it, right? That's kind of like the only downside. But anyways, good job on Nike. I love the 14. I also still love the 13. Can't really go wrong with either. But anyways, that about concludes this versus video. Again, if you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.